Right then, people, we're going to put some string silencers on the horsebow, the Kaya Khan Korean horsebow. We've got, I think I've got all the bits and pieces I need down here. I'm not too sure, but I'll show you what I got. I don't have a bow clamp, so I've got two of these nice soft clamps. They're pretty cushy. I'll show you them working in a minute. Two of these soft clamps to clamp the bow to the coffee table. I have a string splitter, two relatively short pieces of beaver hair, but I suppose any old pelt will do. Could have taken some off of the reindeer skin out there. And some serving thread. I have a couple of bits of 4x2 down here. You'll see why I need them in a minute, or hopefully you'll be able to see why I need them in a minute. So, let's get to work. The bits of 4x2, by the way, the light at the top of the screen is the kitchen window shining through the serving hatch. That's why you've got a haze up there. It won't really matter for this part. But the bits of 4x2 are quite simply to put underneath the coffee table, because the bottom leg on these clamps, I don't know if you can see that from where you are, but touches the floor without the bits of 4x2 on it, so I have to lift the clamps up, because you don't really want to be working with the clamps this way up, because you need to just get in the way. But I have to lift my table up by 2 inches so I can use my clamps. Right, first thing we've got to do is attach the bow to the table. We can work on it without it moving too far. I've already marked the spots where I want these to go in. I've got a string splitter. These are much better to use than a screwdriver. I don't know if you can see with the camera, but they've got very smooth edges, the points chamfered, and they sometimes even sit where you leave them. Now, this still isn't easy even with one of these, because obviously bowstrings are waxed. Now the way this works is, you basically just put a twist on it, and it sits there like that. Now, we'll take one of our pieces of fur, and I'm going to fold the end back like that, and then just about poke it through, then I'll collapse the string back down on it. And that should hold that nice and tight. Now I will wrap this round. Again, I'll pull it tight and keep the pressure on it all the time. Keep the fur out of the way. Now it's going to go in down here somewhere. So while keeping a bit of pressure on here, we'll try and split the string again. This isn't going to be easy. Not with one hand anyway. And you need to try and get the string so that it actually splits in half. There we go. And I'll turn that again. Lock it in place, because they have a bad habit of just springing back when you least expect them to. Try and slide it down this way a bit. twist that around. I've got to make sure the leather, the actual skin, goes through the gap. Which is proving slightly difficult. It looks like it doesn't want to go through that last little bit. What I don't want to do is use a plain old-fashioned screwdriver or anything like that. I know bowstrings are tough, but they're really not that tough. I'll go and find something I can use as a poker. There you go, on poker. Hopefully it'll be good enough for what we need. I'll be surprised how well a piece of leather or animal skin grips onto a bowstring. Now we can poke what little bit of leather is left through the hole and pull it back, and hopefully we can close our string. I've got a bit of leather sticking out there, but I can trim that off with a really sharp blade at some point. Now what we've got to do is do the same at the other end, but I'll put it up on the table and try and get it so you can get a bit of a closer shot for that one. Alright, you should get a slightly better shot on here. That's my centre point, or roughly where I want my centre point to be. This has already had some feathers just tied onto it. The string seems to not be making quite so much noise now. And when you put these things in, you can give this string a little bit of a twist back, and it can sometimes make it much easier to get your string splitter in there. But again, it's one of those jobs where it feels like you need 3 hands to get it done properly. I've got a cat, but she's not really much good at anything apart from eating and sleeping, costing a fortune at the vets. Hope my wife doesn't see me say that. And we'll do the same again. I'll try and do it so you can see it. So we'll just pass that through, pull a bit of the fur through behind it. Then we want to collapse the string down straight onto it like that. Now this string grips tight. I mean, you can see how tight it's gripping when I'm trying to put this in. And then we basically just wind this round. Remembering, if you don't hold on to the string, all you'll actually do is wind the string up, and then when you let go of it, it'll unping. So now we've got to hold that taut and try and get this in again. If I push that down there out of the way. And what you're doing with this is just like I apply a little bit of pressure and just give it a little bit of a wiggle, tiny gentle wiggle, so that it cut its way through or split its way through the strings, and then we pull it back. Then there's a little hook on the end to put in there. You can put an elastic band around the end there that stops this from pinging shut again, but it does come out a lot. So we'll slide these extra strings out of the way if we can. This needs to come down this way a little bit, and I'll take my other end, push it through with the pencil. Try to flatten it out if you can, and once you've got it through, give it a bit of a tug that way towards the top of the bow, and then collapse the string down again. What I should do as well is add a standard serving to there, which I shall do in a minute. But first, I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea so that I can have a drink, because this is thirsty old work. But as you can see, they look quite nice. The shadow is the strap on the camera. They look quite nice. They don't really look out of place on the bow, and hopefully they'll shut the string up. I might give it a couple of test shots in a second. Right then, cup of tea in hand. Well, not cup of tea in hand, but cup of tea on the corner of the table. I need a knife. I won't be a moment. We'll use the trusty old F1. You can see it's had plenty of use. And we're also going to need a gas lighter. Can't really find a gas lighter, so we'll use some pink matches. The table's a bit far away, really, so I'll move it in for this. And I think we only want a little bit of serving. Always be careful when you're using a knife. I never really know the best way to do this. You can look at the ends of servings on most bowstrings and try and work out what the knot is. There's one there, but knots tend to be a bit mystical for me. So for the time being, I'll just tie a few sets of reverse granny knots. So to keep this bit of serving in its place right from the outset, I will tie one granny knot that way and another knot that way. I suppose I should really take the time to learn all the different knots. And then I'll move that end over here out of the way. And then just wrap this round very carefully. Five or six turns. I'm not going to go too far. Like that. And then put a loop in it. Like this. And I need to wrap this end of the string the opposite way to that end. I think that's the opposite way anyway. This is the bit that always gets me. And I'll put that through there. Nope. So as you can probably see, there is a few loops there. Now I'll bring this other end over, take that round that way, and unfortunately, like I say, because I don't use knots much, I very rarely remember them. Much like trying to learn a foreign language. If you ever tried learning a foreign language in your home country, you very rarely get to speak the language, so it makes it very difficult to learn, or relatively easy to learn to speak a foreign language, but not particularly great. When you don't get to speak it a lot. So we'll just chop these off. One other thing I will go and get is some beeswax. The light's not very good in here, but seems okay. Again, small piece of serving string. I'm sure it's probably not called string, but hey, yeah, I wanted to trim that end off. Right, I'll use scissors for that. These scissors, cutting this sort of thing, are going to be a damn sight more accurate than the blade is, or it is for me anyway. And cut that little end off. Try not to throw it on the candle. This one doesn't look as good as the other end, but hey, can't win them all. Again, brush it that way. I'm going to try a different knot on this end. Going to put a loop in the serving string. This way I'll be able to pull it tighter. So we've got a tiny loop there. But then I end up with no way to tie the end off. So, back to normal. Granny knots. I don't know what this is called. I think it's called an overhand knot, but I was always brought up calling them granny knots. Scouts. My dad took a lot of time to teach me how to fix cars, but never really taught me anything else. So yes, I'm very good at fixing cars. Well, I'm pretty good at fixing anything. And no, I'm not a mechanic. So here we go, round and round. 4, 5, 6 times maybe. You can see it's just a short piece. I'll pass that one under so that the two pieces of string are coming up opposite sides of the actual bowstring. And draw it down that way. And draw it down that way. This thing took me an awful long time to learn how to sharpen it. I've been quite capable of sharpening them standard flat grind blades for probably about 4 or 5 years now, but that's got a convex grind on it. My word, did I struggle to get that sharp to start with, but it's sharp now. Perseverance, same with anything in life. Practice, practice, practice. So this should be the last one. Again, double granny knot. One way. One the other way. I leave this bow strung pretty much permanently. I don't think you can see it in this shot, but there's a recurve on the wall behind me. That one also stays strung, contrary to what everybody tells me. Now, I'm kind of hoping I've managed to keep my hands out of the way enough for you guys to see what I've done here. Probably haven't. It's an absolute nightmare because this camera doesn't have a screen on the front of it. The screen's on the back. And there we go. And these clamps release with just a press of a button. Much better than G clamps, and they're also rubber. Got them off eBay. There was about a tenner for the pair, I think, and they're wicked clamps. Right, so I'll put you on pause for a minute and we'll have a few shots and see if these fall out, because I'm sure they will in the end with my terrible knotting. This is what it sounds like before we put string silencers on it. When I was while I was at archery on a Sunday, I was using a 300 grip, and for the last 2 rounds I shot, I changed over to a 1 over, 2 under, and the accuracy improvement is immense. But I need to be quiet when I'm doing this, because this is for sound testing rather than anything. Thanks for taking the time to watch, guys. I hope it helps you in some way. Obviously I'm bad at knots, but I'll let you know how long they stay on there. I'll post the video the same day that I put these on there. This bow gets used for, as I've said before, probably about 50 arrows a day, sometimes every 2 days, depending on how much it makes me ache when I shoot it. So hopefully they'll stay on there forever, but if they don't, you guys will get to find out pretty quick when they fall off. Ta-ra!